past several weeks, Mark Cuban has been involved in debate over diversity, inclusivity, and equity in the workplace, in which Mark Cuban, who owns many companies, has explicitly stated using race and gender in the hiring practice is a good thing. Now, up until then, he was simply arguing the philosophy, which is certainly okay. I think it's wrong, but by all means, argue. And then Mark Cuban opened up massive legal exposure to all of his companies when he announced that he does use race and gender as criteria in his hiring practices, or at the very least, to be as clear as possibly said, they can play a role. Now we are getting a massive backlash for the man after EEOC's commissioner tweeted, "You are dead wrong. You cannot use race or gender in any way." Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Cuban, it would appear, has exposed himself legally. I want to be careful how I say this, but I have to imagine any single one of the companies in which Cuban is involved is likely facing massive potential legal exposure. I'll put it this way. If you ever got fired or weren't hired by any one of his companies, you can sue now and say it was because of my race. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, Asian, or otherwise. Because he says race plays a role. That's not allowed. Here's a story from SCNR.com. You're dead wrong. Federal official tells Mark Cuban it's illegal to consider race and sex when hiring. The billionaire previously claimed race and gender can be part of the equation in his ongoing defense of DEI. Investor and television personality Mark Cuban had his business ethics called into question by United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commissioner Andrea R. Lucas. Now, I ran through the Twitter account. Looks to be as legit can be. Not verified or anything, but it's been around for a long time. Has posted a lot about it, so it seems to be on the level. In recent weeks, Cuban has discussed his thoughts on diversity, inclusivity, and equity, DIE, the die cult, policies. On Sunday, Cuban engaged in a lengthy back-and-forth conversation on X with The Rabbit Hole, it's the name of the account, an X account with over 500,000 followers that describes itself as navigating the discourse in its bio. The exchange occurred after Cuban shared an NBC News article on right-wing influencers, criticism of DEI policies. Throughout the exchange, Cuban detailed his own theories and business practices, which include valuing diversity hires as an asset to placing his business in favorable positions for success. He is wrong. He is racist. And I can only say, I imagine there's going to be tremendous amount of shorting on Mark Cuban companies. Look, they're going to have to spend money on lawyers going through every possible circumstance in which Cuban may have been involved in this, or anyone. When Mark Cuban comes out and says race and gender can play a factor in hiring and they can't, that is like the legal team's probably screaming. I imagine Cuban's lawyers bashing his phone on the wall going, "Rah!" Because now he's going to have to go through every single time they hired or fired someone. Because they have to, well, actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. Mark Cuban's lawyers probably going, "Woohoo! The billable hours just went through the roof, baby." Now, I imagine if you're invested in these companies, it's going to get expensive. He said, here we go. I only ever hire the person that will put my business in the best position to succeed. And yes, race and gender can be part of the equation. I view diversity as a competitive advantage. Lucas, who was appointed by former President Donald Trump, responded to the nearly day-long conversation by providing some insight into the practices of DIE policies, saying, Mark Cuban, EEOC commissioner here, unfortunately, you're dead wrong on the black letter Title VII law. As a general rule, race and sex can't even be a motivating factor, nor a plus factor, tiebreaker, or tipping point. It's important employers understand the ground rules here. In a follow-up response, Lucas shared an August 2023 post linking to a Reuters op-ed, which suggested companies take a hard look at corporate diversity programs in the wake of last year's ruling against affirmative action by the Supreme Court. Cuban has not responded. Lucas' reply marks the latest escalation in Cuban's impassioned month-long defense of DEI practices. DEI is just another word for racism, Musk said in January 3rd post. Shame on anyone who uses it. He added in a separate post, discrimination on the basis of race, which DEI does, is literally the definition of racism. Cuban reposted Mark's comment and offered to help ex-owner out by offering his own thoughts. Good businesses look where others don't. Define the employees that will put your business in the best possible position to succeed. You may not agree, but I take it as a given that there are people of various races, ethnicities, orientation that are regularly excluded from hiring consideration. By extending our hiring search to include them, we can find people that are more qualified. He added, the loss of DEI-phobic companies is my gain. Mark Cuban has no idea what he's talking about. And there have been many people who have been desperately trying to point it out to Mark Cuban why he's wrong. Mark Cuban is very wrong. And I actually made my response to him explaining why he was. And I'll give you, to the best of my ability, Mark Cuban's argument as to why he's actually correct and his misunderstanding of all of this. Mark Cuban's view. He said something like, I've got 30 employees. My company's doing well, and I look around and I wonder why it is all 30 are white. And I think to myself, is there something I'm missing? So I decide the next person I hire, I'll specifically look for an African-American woman who is qualified for the position. His argument being, a diverse point of view can be beneficial to a company. That's true. Only problem, Mark, you're racist. I'm not saying to be mean. I'm not saying that to dig at you or get you emotionally riled up. I'm making a literal statement of fact. It is racist to assume that based on someone's race, they will or won't have particular opinions. Any person of any background can believe whatever they want. Let me do this. I responded to Mark Cuban with a video that I'd like to pull up. So let me dig through my Twitter real quick so I can grab it, breaking down exactly why Mark Cuban is incorrect. And I think his original tweet as well. It was this great video that I saw, 6 black men and 1 white man, and they're all blindfolded. And they're trying to figure out who is the white man. It's from Jubilee, and it's an amazing video. Mark Cuban says, you start a company. 5 successful years later, you realize that all of your 30 employees are white men. You decide as CEO that in order to profitably grow the company further, you need diverse perspectives. You decide to find and hire the most qualified African-American woman you can find. You good with this? You see, when you combine all of his statements, you get an overt admission of breaking the law. You decide to hire the most qualified African-American woman you can find. The most qualified African-American woman may or may not be more qualified than a Latino woman or a white woman or Asian woman. Deciding the race is illegal. But more importantly, Mark Cuban's a racist, and here's how I responded. I said, watch this video to understand. If you think skin color determines worldview, you are racist. If you hire based on that, you are racist. 6 black men versus 1 secret white guy. Fun 20-minute video. Really did enjoy it. They say we brought together 7 black men. Okay, so it's 7 black men. One of the guys is white. So here's what happens. Everyone's wearing blindfolds. One of the guys is a white dude. There he is. Look at him. They do not figure it out. They all talk. They all answer questions. And then at the end, they say it's silent. So raise your hand if you think this person is white. People raise their hand. Then they say, okay, you've been voted out. This guy right here, right in the middle with this striped shirt, he's a black man. And they ask him, and he's like, yo, my cousin went to HBCU, and come on, man, I'm black. And then they interview the people after, like, nah, he's not black. Get him out. They vote him out. The white dude does not get voted out and wins. You know why? The white dude was adopted by a black family and raised in South Central. He sounds like, and he knows what it's like in South Central. And so it's funny because they're like, I forgot the guy's name, Rob or whatever. Tell us, about your life. And there's one point where they say, how can we help advance the black community and make things better? And they're all giving their thoughts. And then this dude says something like, man, you got to stop gangbanging, y'all, because then what? You going to end up in jail with the guy you just slit? Like, man, you can't do it, dude. And then they're like, he's black. And it's funny because they ask him about it. And one guy's like, it sounds like I was talking to one of my cousins. He's a white guy. It's not like some white guy grew up in this, like Naperville, Illinois, and then pretended to be black. He's like, I was adopted as a little kid by a black mom. I grew up only ever around black people. I went to school with only black people. It's like juvie, jail, whatever. It's only ever with black people. So everything he knows, everything. And they were like, was that hard? And he's like, I don't know. It's just the way it was. Like he didn't even think about it. He's just another guy hanging out with all these people. And it probably came up or whatever. This is my point to Mark Cuban. You have a white guy grow up in South Central, and the black people are going to be like, he's black. Dave Chappelle had this really, really great joke with Clayton Bigsby, the black white supremacist, where Clayton Bigsby is blind. He's a blind black man who was raised thinking he was white. It's so smart. Dave Chappelle, such great classic stuff. And there's a scene where he pulls up and you've got three white guys in a car playing rap music, and he screams at them the N-word. And then the three white guys are like, yo, did he just call us black? They're like, all right. Like they're white guys listening to hip hop. I thought that was always a great commentary on racism, because it like the black dude who's blind is a white supremacist because he can't see. And so what happens? It's the culture that he takes issue with. Mark Cuban is saying, I want diverse perspectives. Okay, then go to South Central and hire. Say we're doing a hiring fair in South Central. Guess what? You're going to get mostly black people. But you don't hire them because they're black. You hire them because they have a particular worldview that you think you could use. Mark Cuban can't separate race from like personality. He's like, nah, I got too many white guys. Okay. How about this? He says 5 successful years later, you realize all your employees are white men. One guy is from South Central. He's white because there are white people who live down there. One guy is white, but he's from Mexico. One guy is white. He's from Spain. One guy is white. He's from South Africa. All of these people from all over the world with different opinions, speaking different languages. And he's like, nope, there's no diversity because they all look the same. Racist, dude. And I'll tell you what really grinds my gears about this and exactly why it pisses me off. Because right now, there is some Asian kid, okay? Well, I should say before the Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action. You got some 7-year-old low-income Asian kid, and someone goes to them and says, I'm sorry, you don't get to go to Ivy League schools because you look too much like how they look. What does that have to do with who I am and what I can be? That sickens me, dude. And you know, it's because I personally experienced something like that. When I'm a kid growing up and I'm told, do not put Asian on any of these forms because Asians aren't a voting bloc, they'll discriminate against you. And they do. They've always done it. Asians got to score higher on the SATs. Do not mark down that you're Asian. They will be racist. Just lie and say you're Hispanic and then you'll get an advantage. What's the point? So when I look at what Mark Cuban is saying, I see scumbaggery. I see racism. I see a man, it is this, but we're so much better. It's like white supremacists with guilty consciences. He's saying successful years with 30 white men. So we're going to go find an African-American woman. You know what he's saying? He is saying that in his experience, he's not ever encountered highly qualified non-white people. That's what he's saying. The idea that you would have to seek someone out instead of you're sitting in a business meeting and they're like, man, that guy, Bill Smith, he's the best dang salesperson we've ever seen. I mean, this guy could run the whole department. And you go, bring him in. And along walks in a black man who's the best. That's never happened to you, Mark Cuban? It's always just white people? Look, it's entirely likely that you will often end up with very white newsrooms or very white factories or very white banks or whatever, because white people are the majority of the country. So Mark Cuban saying the most qualified African-American, he's outright saying he's not looking for the most qualified. Because I'll tell you this. His implication that the actual most qualified person just happens to be African-American, were that true, he'd already have them. What he's saying is he has to go and seek out a black person. Okay, well, you're breaking the law. It's actually illegal. Andrea R. Lucas has made that clear for all of us, Mark Cuban. So I'm going to say this. If you were ever fired or hired by him, sounds like you got a big legal case. I'm going to leave it there. I'm getting the hiccups. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.